about crowd control and some interesting parts of combat, and then we'll walk through dungeons and see what makes dungeons really cool inside of Wildstar. What I won't cover is awesome stuff like war plots, which are big giant PvP fortresses, and paths, which is like how you customize content to each player of the game, and action combat. I'll cover kind of some, but I'll have to play through it. So here in summary is, what is Wildstar? What's kind of the personality and vibe of the game? Spoiler, it's kind of over the top. It's kind of my personality.
Legend tells of the mysterious planet Nexus and its hyper-advanced inhabitants that disappeared from the galaxy long ago. Ancient secrets, advanced technology, and forbidden magic hidden away for thousands of years. No one had ever set foot on Nexus until now. The exiles, a motley crew of refugees, outlaws, and mercenaries, must fight off the dominion of powerful interstellar empires bent on planetary domination. From Carbide Studios comes the most epic, face-no-neck, mind-obliterating galactic adventure since the beginning of time itself. Welcome to Wildstar. Adventure is about to get an ass-kicking.
The same personality that pervades the game itself. We don't take ourselves seriously. If we're playing for hundreds of hours, you would be bored if we were all like brooding and serious. Or you would also be annoyed if we were all completely over the top. So we kind of switch tones area to area. We also talk with our fans a lot. We do a series called Dev Speak, where every company's been doing about one a month, where we talk about features in the games at a deep level. Not for the casual fan, but more for like an experienced MMO player to kind of get what our philosophies are and why we're doing what we're doing. So here's what went live just a couple hours ago. It's about crowd control.
Welcome to Wildstar. This is Dev Speak. This is our disclaimer. Not sure what this is. Order up. In this episode, we're going to take another little look inside the Wildstar combat sandwich. We've shown the meat and the bread, movement and aiming. Now it's time for the cheese. Crowd control. Crowd control are attacks that disable enemies. Stuns, knockdown, sleep, that kind of thing. Now, players have a love-hate relationship with crowd control. After all, using CC on an enemy can be undeniably satisfying. But there are few game systems that can be as keyboard-breaking, table-flipping, monitor-smashingly frustrating as being the victim of crowd control. That being said, CC is a fundamental part of MMO gameplay. It adds variety to the kinds of abilities you can use, expanding player choice beyond just damage and healing. CC also forces players to react and improvise, using abilities in ways they might not always predict. So with that in mind, we've been working hard to avoid CC's major flaw, losing control of your character. Nobody likes watching helplessly as their character gets beat up. Our answer to this is a system we call breakout gameplay. Thanks to this system, when you get hit with CC, you're not helpless, but it's on you to counter. Alright, here's an example. Take disarm. An enemy hits you with a disarm, and for 5 seconds you can't use your weapon attacks, right? Pretty standard. Well, in Wildstar, disarm actually shoots your weapon out into the game space. All you've got to do is run over and grab it. Of course, in the heat of combat, this can be challenging. Okay. Now, taking disarm as a prototype, we've applied this concept to just about all crowd control in Wildstar. Let's say you get stunned. Whoa there. Spam your F key quick enough, and you can shake it off. Get knocked down? Use a dash charge to roll back to your feet. Disorient actually rearranges your movement controls. What the Left is up and down is a... Ah! Blind is a cool one. Because of freeform targeting, you can still use all your abilities. Nice job. You just healed a tree. Tether is a new type of CC. Need to escape? Whoop! Not so fast. Better hurry up and bust that anchor. Homie's looking to kill you. We've also reworked how CC affects bosses. Instead of just making them immune to CC, we've given them what we call interrupt. What this means is, you and your buddies, you can actually work together to stun this motherfucker. Well, that's all the time I have for now. Keep an eye out for more Dev Speak. What comes after the bread, meat, and cheese? How about some special sauce? Give us a shout on social media, and let us know if you have any cool ideas. Remember, the devs are listening.
So, let's go show some of this in action, what it means for us for dungeons. Now, there's a couple different ways that you can play solo largely, outdoor world. Combat's relatively easy. The challenges are moderate, but the rewards aren't bad, but the best rewards are in the hardest kinds of gameplay. Because you can also level up doing dungeons, entirely improved gameplay. And we're not a believer in kind of the new school of dungeons where they're very simple and they're very trivial and they're made to be played in sort of novice fashion. We like hard dungeons, like it's a challenge because we put the best rewards there, and risk for us should always equal reward. And so when we do a dungeon, we make huge spaces. Each room has individual challenges within it, usually different environmental hazards. The bosses have multiple phases. And you can kind of see that like the dungeons themselves are large. These are like, they range about a half hour up to a couple hours of experience per dungeon. Usually a different paths to unlock throughout the dungeon as you kind of go through it. Each one's really steeped in the lore. You know, the fundamental story of the world. The Elden is this like magical race. They test technology and magic. And they disappear. Something happened to them. And the story of what happened to them gets unlocked through this rich game world. And then via our patch updates afterwards, we keep advancing the world story. Like spoiler, you know, bad stuff happened to the Elden and it's still on the planet players need to deal with. And so let me hop over here and show some actual gameplay to explain what it's like to improve fights. Because we see our game as being kind of an engine. We take new players in who have not played an MMO, and then we want to convert them into being elder level, high level, advanced players by the time they beat the game. Because we like a broad appeal game, you know, art style that can break people in, easy and little gameplay. But we also really love the challenge. We think that's a whole change of the MMOs for a long time, is actually getting rewards and really skilled players. So, we give a dungeon fight. Often you have a boss. And there's mechanics, different classes, you know, spell summoners are really fast moving and bounce around the battlefield a lot. A lot of things are AoE, where you do big AoE attacks from the bosses or from you. If you see low-level gameplay, you see telegraphs, you know, red markers on the ground, what the enemies do, different colored markers for what your teammates do. This is how you communicate inside of combat. It's how you communicate with your buddies. And that's how enemies communicate in the context of the puzzles in each fight. Here, the disciples are empowering the main boss. And now he's going to start seeking out individual players and setting linkages after them. Well, as a player, you can see these markers following you around, and if you're smart, you run up to the disciples of the priest and you damage them with the lightning bolts. If you're not smart, you run to your party members, and everybody takes a big shot. It's about coordinating as a group, you know, how using skill together. Individual classes and stealth classes that sneak up behind you do lots of damage. The tanks and the warriors who like to absorb a lot of damage, they don't have to dodge around as much. But generally, like lots of movement and lots of skill choice about how you can use your abilities. You know, we talked about the interrupt armor, where you can break through the boss's interrupt, you can coordinate as a group, and actually do crowd control. So now as the fight progresses, it tends to get a little more complex as players learn each mechanic. So now there's still lightning bolts being sent after players. There's also wandering damage. These blue orbs appear as each of the priests die. And so there's more and more sort of wandering damage markers throughout the environment. It's a little more complex and easy to dodge. Maybe something that's concerned. And now big patterns start emerging, so you need to dodge the little things as well as the big attacks. Again, because we have this language to communicate with players, because they've been trained literally since level 1 about what these telegraphs mean, players can tackle a bit more complexity in their fights because we broadcast this language about what the context is of the combat. This also applies to imagine PvP. You see your enemies doing all their attacks on the ground, you're mixing in your attacks, and it's half how you're damaging, it's half how you're fainting, it's half how you're pretending to attack and then doing something else. So there's strategy kind of involved in all of it as well. Now, in terms of lore for each of these guys, this is the Inquisitor that they're beating down. He's the guardian just walking the way to Stormtown to go tackle the High Priests and then the Stormtown himself, the sort of end boss. Stormtown is a demigod. Hell, these creatures are basically, they've invented a religion around the technology of the Elven, and so they're performing experiments without really quite knowing what they're doing. So, of course, it goes horribly wrong. Okay, so tackling the boss. You've got your first boss around level 18 kind of combat we're talking here. And you're on with the next crew. This is Aetheros. He controls tornadoes, and so they're a fundamental part of both the room itself and the fight. He's basically an elemental, and he has, as you do our fights, a number of different phases and things that he can do. First, he's setting up a lot of hazards around the room. Hazards are often things that can damage you. Sometimes you can turn them into things that are beneficial or healing. Sometimes you can use them against your enemies. And most fights start off fairly simple, but people fall into the kind of trinity rules of tanking and healing and damage. And then we start leveraging on a bit more complexity. In this case, now we start sending out lightning storms in a bunch of areas around the battlefield. Instead of following you, they need to be dodged out and quickly maneuvered. So we're testing kind of reaction speed here. And as he gets knocked down, he breaks up into multiple sub-elements as well. Now your crowd control abilities are effective, where you can actually literally be doing things like AoE and multiple targets at once. We don't like getting bored during a combat, so we tend to throw a couple different phases, a couple different challenges, all within the scope of combat. This is raid level stuff. Most games, we actually introduce it early, and then we make it really clear by the time we get up to the raid level. In fact, the teams will show a little bit of raiding at the end of this for some of the environments and the raids, because they're really spectacular. So after knocking down all three of the sort of underlings, things get really crazy. Now, all of these tornadoes start going in motions. The party is teleported to the end room, and they have this sort of gauntlet to run through now to try to get just back to the main boss and then fight him. People sometimes ask us, oh, telegraphs, it's like easy mode for combat. No, what it really is it's giving us a language so we can talk to players and do more complex stuff, and have players that are trained up to be able to deal with these things by the time they face them. And there's a lot of different area effect things that happen. You'll see the healer placing out little healing beacons around the world. People are sort of gathering, some people do more damage from behind the monster, from the side of the monster. Positioning is important in terms of our gameplay. Alright, yeah, should we interrupt? You have questions if you have questions on anything, or it seems like I'm blazing over anything. And we don't do sort of BS demos. We actually record us really fighting the creature actually back to back as opposed to trying to do some highly scripted whatever. We believe in real gameplay as much as possible. So this fight has gotten pretty interesting. Whirlwinds swirling all around. Finally the players bring them down, and it's time for the final boss. In this case, the mighty dragon Storm Talon. Now, we have an in-game cinematics engine. You know, the stuff we do with the dev sneak flicks, or you've probably seen our Wildstar flicks. It's all done with in-game footage. You know, we have this ability to do it. And it actually works in the game where we tell the story, like you have to prove, of the high priests here who are summoning up Storm Talon. They have to sacrifice themselves to bring this sort of demigod back into the world. There's actually a really cool side effect of these bosses. If you fight them in a particularly skilled way, you do the right challenge, or if you get a rare drop off the monster, you can actually capture them and bring them to your war plot to be used in PvP later. In fact, war plot battles, just the other day I was fighting Storm Talon as a player-controlled, player-directed bad guy on the battlefield. And so not only is bosses cool in their own right, but if you fight them right, you get to use them in PvP as well. I'm trying to open the war plot to be able to do Storm Talon and Mighty Dragon. These abilities are all involving electricity in different fashions, and now we're starting setting cooperative group play where the players have to coordinate each other. As usual, start off with a simple part of the fight. He makes it more complex because he can actually make lightning storms that are persist on the battleground and last for a while, as well as just doing lightning storms. He can also summon really big attacks, and if he's not interrupted, they'll sweep through the entire battlefield, so you have the chance to interrupt him before getting hit by these sort of large attacks. Which our players are actually good enough to do. Right here. He also starts doing some interesting attacks that really kind of point out some of the class differences, as well as showing what it means to do cooperative gameplay. Because we give rewards if you play skillfully. If you dodge attacks well, we give you extra bonuses. We drop little healing buffs or little speed buffs, XP boosts. If you don't dodge well, you get hit with large damage. In this case, he's making the battlefield interesting by putting a lot more persistent effects down of electricity. And he's comboing up with his other attacks, making it harder to dodge when he does some really big-ass attack like this tornado. There's a tornado coming in, and it centers the eye of it on one player. And this means everyone else is sort of clustering around, trying to do as much damage as possible while staying in that safe spot. But there's lightning striking in the middle, so the player has to move. And so this makes for, again, kind of a cooperative experience where if your party organizes well together, you're going to do well. If not, you're going to have trouble. You know, we're not scared to make these things actually challenging. We're not scared to make these things require skilled gameplay. There's lots of good stuff for raw noobs who will never want to do this in the open world. But here we're going to have things that's a challenge, and more so when you get to raiding. It's interesting effect. So now he's actually centered on the tank. So the tank doesn't need to dodge. He can just tank his way through those lightning things without dodging. And so his party members have an easier time staying around and blasting in on the dragon, doing as much damage as possible. Depending on your group composition, the fight can go in very different ways. Now, when you have the spell slingers over here, they're very weak. They can't tank rolling, so they need to rapidly move around and dodge to be able to handle those attacks. And so it's more of a challenge for the rest of the group kind of staying with the spell slinger. If he sits in one place, he's going to get zotted. So all this kind of leads up is training through the dungeon to do tougher and tougher battles, and culminates for us with raids. Raids will show actually one for the first time right at the tail end of this. They are randomized so that the different rooms come in different patterns. There are different sub-bosses, there's different environmental hazards, and then our goal is to have sort of weekly competitions where the best guilds on the planet are trying to do these random combinations as fast as possible, as well as possible. Meaning that even if you can crack a raid finally, that's not guaranteed to be an easy configuration every week. Sometimes it is, the newbie guilds have a chance to try to do the tougher rooms. But most of the time, not only are you competing against the raid, you're competing against other guilds to be the best on the planet. And if you win that competition, we attach legendary rewards to that so that the best loot comes from being the best guild on the planet. Never mind just server first and that kind of stuff. No, we reward sort of world first very accurately. So, let's use a little data scheme. This is a raid here where you're in like the mind of a computer. And the computer's laying out each room in front of you in a different random configuration to kind of see the dungeon building itself out in front of you for the rooms. It's a world that's gone haywire, so it's a lot of mortal zones that have been corrupted and dissolved into different sort of data forms. As each of the show probably been said. Each of the realms has different aspects of fire, air, earth, darkness, light. And within the raid, there's lots of destructible terrain, there's lots of things that sort of phase in and out. And as I mentioned, you're inside this computer, and so you sort of see the whole thing kind of resolve in front of you as you go through it, as you get your kind of random configuration. So that's group gameplay kind of in a nutshell is where we're at right now. We have 5 or 6 different dungeons as you level up. We have more of them that you do at the top level. We have housing dungeons as well now in the game. We have a couple different raids underway. We're really aiming to have kind of a deep set of experience. Not 50 hours of content when you're done, but actually have a long leveling curve and then lots and lots of content at the tail end. So ask me questions on that or anything. I'll pop up the game so I can't really keep up real gameplay as opposed to videos or this. Questions on anything? I've stunned everyone into silence by talking too long and too fast. It's okay, I'm used to that.
It's pretty much stunning. I love the combat, to be honest. It's more and more hardcore than all the other stuff that I've seen before, like in other games.
Yeah, we kind of mix it because the base combat anyone ought to do. We bring in players who never played a game before, plop them down, videotape them, and make sure they can actually get through the interface. But we're not scared to have a lot of depth in it because we've been bored by the depth of most MMOs that have come out maybe the last 5-6 years.
It doesn't need that to be hardcore, but I mean all the mechanics and stuff like that.
Yep. But for example, even so here we have housing. This he's built a house. Lots of cool epic stuff in it. I'll show you my own thought. Lots of cool epic stuff. A lot of it is built for casuals and some is built for hardcore. For casual players, there's a piano you can play. So you and your buddies can stand there, you can actually record songs. You can change it up and down different octaves. You can play back songs you played before. There's lots of social clubs that you invite people over, and the more you do things. There's trade skill stuff. And all this is completely, user-generated in terms of like the different things we do. This has made a challenge now where different gold ore is here, but the whole area is being blasted by explosions. So how much can you run through and dodge through? So it's not just as trivial as like, oh, how much ore can you mine? You actually have a puzzle to solve while you do it. The 4 different combat puzzles things get summed up here. This is like a sort of challenge to get. You get hurled up in the air, and how many different crystals can you get? There's a massive amount of content just in sort of like any of this. And all of it's sort of climbable within the game. Like let's take our roving here. Dungeon, here's our roving. Let's replace this with we destroy it. in the open world, the settlers actually modify the towns themselves, add new vendors in, add new mounts. This is just a really simple one, which is a statue maker where you can capture your friends. There you go. Here I am in Colorado. The goal really with housing is giving a nice safe place to play. And then we take the same stuff in war plots and we take it to the next level where you're now building a town with your friends. You fight town versus town. Destructible stuff in the environment, big raid bosses stomping around, all that kind of cool stuff. The goal is depth of content. We think that many MMOs that have been underway for a while, it's people really are just leveling up the cap and they forget about the end games, they forget about the depth. We're spending, right now, in our beta, we have, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people. We've gotten up to about 4,100 concurrent users on the server. And our intent is to spend about the next 6 months just tuning, and polishing for a fully polished experience, finishing up remaining content, all that kind of stuff. So we're aiming for early next year. But many games have shipped just at that sort of level, but we want it to be perfect. We want to make sure we're the biggest game on the planet for the next part of the news. Because the world needs a really good big MMO, or at least we want to play one, so we'll make one. Hopefully everyone else will follow along.
I'm waiting for a pretty long time for a game with a high level content because I played Star Wars and after level 50 was boring. Even Guild Wars 2 was boring.
Star Wars did a lot of good stuff great. You know, the storytelling in the game was unsurpassed, but it's very hard to repeat storyline.
There was only one raid.
Yeah.
And then you do it maybe 3 times, and then you had all the epic gear, and that's it. So let's move on to the next game.
The other games are to win, because there's something about the MMO industry different than other game spaces, which is you can do a 10-hour game, 20-hour game, put it in a box, sell it, shoot or something,
yeah.
And sell 6 million units, make a bunch of money. MMOs make their money in the long haul. It's all retention, and the only way to retain players is good gameplay. That's it. You can't cheat. You can't do a pretty box or a good marketing campaign. So you got to have a fun leveling game, and then you have to have good other games. And it's easy to forget that when you're developing, but we really think that's the key.
Yeah, I think you do it the right way.
So we think so too. Anyway, I probably handle like 1 or 2 more questions before we break up.
You said that Wildstar is kind of a sand park, type of MMO.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, you have a few sandbox features, but are you open to introduce more if there's strong player interest in the future, after launch?
Well, we find in general new players like direction. You know what I mean? It's nice having a quest line that guides you through a zone. And then we add as many dynamic elements on top of that to kind of, sandbox it up. Housing is almost entirely sandbox. You get random drops in the world, you get to unlock different stuff in different ways, and it's how you configure it. So we really try to have a bit of a mix. If you have no direction, an undirected sandbox, players wander off, they get bored, they don't know what to do. And so hitting that right level of direction when you're not on a rail is actually quite tricky. So yes, in general, as the levels go up, we add more of those elements. Settlers get some great replacing things where they can modify stuff to the world wherever they want, not just kind of on a rail. And over time, I suspect we add more sandbox elements because as the player base matures, is when they start demanding more and more of them. But we'll see. Players have to kind of tell us what we do right and what we do wrong.
How does questing work?
So questing actually works. It's a system we're overhauling right now. Usually there's a base quest line for the zone, and then there's a lot of layered content around it. Path missions, which are varied based on your path you explore. It's like unlocking hidden caverns or routes up the mountainsides. There's challenges, which is we replace a lot of kill quests with if you defeat something well, you get a time challenge and you'll kill more and more. You get calls on your cell phone for random events that happen in the world. The work from things that just take up an area instead of being a guy with a question mark over their head. So there's a lot of different ways that you kind of get different content direction. Also, based on your path, you get different rewards for doing different stuff. Like if you're an explorer, you get extra bonus every time you unlock a new region on the map, or for clearing the entire map, or for finding the highest point in the zone. If you're a settler, you get extra path XP for every person you help. If you place down a campfire that buffs players, every player who uses it, they get a strength buff, and you get social XP, path XP, for having helped them out. And so because of that, there's a lot of elements that just aren't standard questing.
It's not just quest hubs with 15 people standing there. Get me 15 fish.
We do some of that from time to time, but we try not to do most of it. I think players are kind of bored with it. Also, whenever you have a quest hub, settlers get to modify it. They build new buildings, they can add nodes to the taxi network, they can make new quest hubs appear, they can build outposts in the wilderness where you can defend. Settlers change all that stuff. And we cheat, like the more settlers in an area, the higher tiers of the stuff they build. There's things that let players get extra XP or speeds up their movement, mount vendors and stuff. And that way, if you have a very dense area, there's lots of settlers, they make stuff that helps the players move out of the area faster through XP or through movement. So we kind of cheat good game design to really make those areas feel pretty dynamic. What do we think? Other questions? Half an hour of pure information. Give as much as possible. Only 240 hours, 49 and a half hours more to go. Cool, thanks. If you're not going to, maybe it would be the finish up, so that's probably good.